Good morning. Welcome to the Agape Livecast for the 24th of July, where we're going to mostly focus on Tropical Storm Hanna. And I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. First of all, in the tropical Atlantic, you can see Hanna's in the northwest Gulf of Mexico. We have Gonzalo east of the islands. We're really not going to talk about that right now. We'll focus on that later. We've got plenty of time. We have an area of disturbed weather off the coast of Africa. And if we look at the wide-angle satellite view, we can see that it's very well put together for this time of year. We have plenty of time to watch that, but I think that is going to be the big player here over the next week or two. We're really going to have to watch that. I think that's probably going to be the hurricane of note here early on in our hurricane season, probably here in the first week of August. First of all, taking a look at Hanna in the northwest Gulf of Mexico. Early morning visible imagery shows it's not well put together. We have some dry air here in the northwest quadrant of the storm. Most of our convection is on the south side and on the east side. Taking a look at the infrared imagery, we're starting to get some convection wrapping around to the center, near the center. It's not what I would call classically put together. We're not getting what I like to call a fist, and that's just not my term. Meteorologists use it, weather nerds use it. It's where you see a really deep band of convection start to wrap around the center. Usually starts on the south side and you see it explode around. You can kind of see it. It looks a little bit like it's trying to do that, but when tropical systems create a fist, you'll know it. And right now, Hanna's not doing that anytime fast. This is the current advisory from 7 a.m. Located 285 miles east of Corpus Christi, max winds at 40 miles an hour. Not a lot of strengthening overnight, which is a little bit surprising. Minimal central pressure is 1,001 millibars. The plane is out there right now, found central pressure of 1,000 millibars. That's down a little bit. And you can see the summary of watches and warnings in effect. Tropical storm warning is in effect from Rio Grande to San Luis Pass. Probably a little bit overdone here with the tropical storm warning. Just remember, just because you have a tropical storm warning or a hurricane warning doesn't mean you're actually going to get those conditions. That's just a kind of a cover all your bases, just in case something happens. When you look at this cone, I want to kind of educate a little bit here on the cone. When you see this cone, remember, this is not where they're expecting the storm to go. This is the 2/3 level of uncertainty. 2/3 of all the storms in the previous so many years land within this cone. It doesn't mean that they're forecasting it to go within this cone. Just remember, this is the margin of error. Okay, I just kind of want to draw that to your attention. This is the latest recon. There's a plane out there right now. The reason why I put this on the screen is you'll see a couple of 3 dots here, and you'll see a line. This is actual forecast track from the 4 a.m. advisory, and then you'll see a little red dot here. This is where the center is located now by recon. Why I put this on here? Well, to show you that the center has relocated a little bit to the north. It did this yesterday, except for it relocated a little bit to the south. This is not uncommon in weak tropical storms. They bounce around, the center moves around depending on where the convection is, and until it gets totally consolidated with convection all around it, you can expect it to do this. I just looked at the recon. It seems to have resumed its west-northwest motion. And so what I would anticipate on the 10 o'clock advisory from the Hurricane Center is the forecast track will be nudged probably a little bit to the north. And so if we go back up here, you can see how it kind of moved. Looks like it's going to have to move due west. Well, what I would expect is to see the track move a little bit to the north up here near Portal Cana. So taking a look at the forecast models, you can see most of our spaghetti models are spread anywhere from Matagorda to about Corpus Christi, and that looks pretty good to me. And taking a look at the tropical storm force wind probabilities, this gives you a really good idea of what are your chances of actually experiencing tropical storm force winds. Well, if you can see that if you're along the upper Texas coast, they're not really good. If you're south near Brownsville, it's not really good. You got 5 or 10% chance. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't get some gusts along the coast to near tropical storm force, but your chances of actually getting a 1 minute sustained wind of 39 miles an hour or greater are just not that good. And if you look over to the right, this is the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds if you were to get them. And so what that shows us is that sometime around 8 to noon tomorrow is about the time of landfall. So the real threat here is going to be rainfall. And taking a look at our estimated rainfall for about the next 3 days, we can see that along the Louisiana coast we're looking at 1 to 2 inches. Upper Texas coast we're looking at about 1 inch. Isolated 3 inches. You could get a feeder band where you may get some training of the feeder band, and you may get pick up maybe 3 inches in an isolated area. But overall, I suspect that the area is going to get about 1 inch. Now, as we get down towards Matagorda, southward around Port Aransas, 3 to 5 inches is probably going to be pretty common, an isolated band of 6 inches perhaps. The real heavy rain is going to be down in the valley around McAllen, Corpus Christi, this area 4 to 6 inches, and I would not be surprised to see an isolated total of around 9 to 10 inches, somewhere in that range. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it wouldn't shock me. Now, this is the latest recon that I found right before I started broadcasting. The plane just passed through the center again, and I wanted to show you how this kind of works. This little image here shows that it's a NOAA plane. It's not the Air Force Hurricane Hunters. This is a NOAA plane, and they just found a pressure of 1,003 millibars on this pass, and they have 5 knots of wind. So that shows you right there. And what I did was I clicked on this little wind barb right here, and that shows you that they're right near the center, and the center is at 27.16 north and 93 west, and that shows you that it had resumed that west-northwest motion. Remember, it had taken that jog almost to the north-northwest, and now it has resumed that west-northwest motion. And if we extrapolate that out, it puts it just south of Matagorda Island, north of Corpus Christi. But remember, the forecast track is calling for it to bend back towards the west. So I kind of just want to show you the inner workings of that. Shows you the time of the recon observation, shows you their altitude. They're flying at 5,000 feet. And this shows you kind of the winds that they're picking up at the altitude of the aircraft. They're picking up some 35, 40 mile an hour winds out there. Nothing to write home about. Given that the pressure is 1,000 millibars, I would suspect that the winds are going to start to catch up with this pressure. With the pressure of 1,000 millibars, I would suspect I would see winds of about 50 miles an hour here in the next 6 hours or so. And really, what does it mean for our area down here in Houston and Galveston along Freeport? Lots of rain. Not a lot of wind, but lots of rain. 80%, 100% chance of rain, especially towards the coast. And you see down for our friends down in Freeport, lots of rain, a little breezy. The highest winds I saw forecasted by the Weather Service were gusts as high as 30 miles an hour. And that'll about do it. I will provide another update later on in the afternoon. If anything changes, I don't anticipate any major changes. The question I think everybody has is, will it develop into a hurricane? I honestly expected to see a little bit more development overnight. It seemed like it was on a pretty quick pace to deepen, develop. It stalled overnight in its development. I honestly expected to see about a 50 mile an hour tropical storm when I woke up this morning, and it didn't happen. So I would say that we're going to see a landfalling storm of about 60 to 65 miles an hour, short of anything crazy happening. But remember, it's 2020. Anything can happen. God's in control, right? He's in control. So until then, just remember Jesus loves you. God bless.